So good discussion so far, and piggybacking onto that discussion is more and more in the research and in the collective consciousness is this question of EMFs and how do EMFs impact overall health. Can you see this?
Mm-hmm.
It's a blue spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So the top is all frequencies across the wavelengths from visual to X-ray to, you know, cosmic gamma rays and space stuff. And then on the bottom is, you know, from VC, basically TV to radio to cell phones to Bluetooth to 5G. And what's important to understand is 5G is everything from 5G up. Okay. So that's important because when they put a 5G antenna on your telephone pole outside your house and they launch 5G satellites, they may put out 5G or they may put out 10G or they may put out 100G, but it's all 5G right now. It's labeled 5G. And that's important because the meters that are available commercially for us to measure it, to say, hey, how much is coming off of this 5G antenna, they stop at 10G. So that means if they're putting off 12G, we can only see 10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we could be getting blasted by more than we're actually feeling. And this is important because the goal, and it's, excuse me, the corporate goal, oh no, oh here it is, that is actively happening right now is to blanket the earth in 5G so that you could have internet in the Amazon or internet in the middle of the ocean. And this is Robert F. Kennedy's Instagram page, and he's pressing charges against the FCC to try and prevent this. But basically on Friday, the FCC approved the SpaceX program, which is basically Elon Musk. He's launching 40,000 satellites in low orbit around Earth to be able to pick up the 1 million 5G antennas that will be communicating with them, so that wherever we are, we have 20 milliseconds or less, we're on the website we want, or we can shoot that text, or we can post that update. The problem with that is that nowhere on the planet will we be safe from millimeter wave radiation, which is what 5G makes. So, and now in California, while they're on quarantine, they're trying to increase the 5G in school so that when our kids go back, the most vulnerable part of our population is being baked all day, every day. Mm. And so, you know, even without the 5G in the schools, the kids are, in our population, the kids are most vulnerable. There's been studies with cell phone radiation associating cell phone use with brain tumors, especially in kids, because the blood-brain barrier in kids is less developed than in adults, so they're more vulnerable. Well, classrooms are where they're getting the most EMFs, because classrooms in general are rated for Wi-Fi to support 30 devices, right? All the kids, like there's certain schools that give laptops, or many schools the kids have devices, so the classrooms have to support that. Well, so those kids are being bathed in that all day, every day. If we now make that 5G, that increases their exposure in the most vulnerable part of our population. And so a 5G antenna looks like this. This is one in Raleigh. And so this is the 5G antenna, and this is a sign right next to it that says, on this tower, radio frequency fields near some antennas may exceed FCC rules for human exposure, meaning they say, hey, here's the safe limit. Well, the limit is exceeded the closer you get to the tower. Personnel climbing the tower should be trained for working in radio frequency environments and use a personal monitor to know how much basically microwave they're getting. Mm. So what's the difference between 5G, 4G, 3G, the things we've been used to? Well, here's another picture of a tower. And one of the differences is the 4G, the 3G, the things our cell phones have been using. You've seen the cell phone towers, right? They're huge and they look like fake trees. They're not fooling anybody, right? Well, those are 100 feet, 200 feet up potentially. And with the Wi-Fi and the EMFs, there's distance, there's intensity, and there's density or exposure. And so the farther away it is, the better. Well, 5G is a millimeter wavelength, and it's a weak signal, so it needs to be closer to the ground. So they're going to be on basically every other telephone pole. And so you can see they're like feet from the ground instead of hundreds of feet from the ground. And so we're much closer to the dense radiation and the intensity. And for them to work, and this image is showing that they'll beam directly to your phone. So when you're walking and it's on demand. So when you shoot that text or you want to make that post, you get a 5G blast to your phone and to your body if your phone's in your pocket or whatever. And if I'm between you and your phone, I get blasted too. And so there's you know, this is going to be everywhere if they have their way. So is there any science behind the risk? Glad you asked. Here's the Journal of Chemical Neuroanatomy, and this was done in 2016. And this is showing, this is on rats, but they're studying, let me get my pointer here. They're studying EMFs and the impact on blood-brain barrier permeability. So basically, if we put a cell phone near a rat's head, does it cause leaky brain? And yes, it does. What they found is that 20 minutes of pulse modulated radio frequency radiation, so basically 20 minutes on a cell phone, increased the blood-brain barrier permeability in rats, so caused leaky brain in rats and in males and females. And so the results of the study was this suggests that mobile phone radiation could lead to increased leaky brain under non-thermal exposure levels. And that's important because one of the arguments that the studies that say cell phones don't cause damage is they say, well, they're not producing enough heat to create damage. They're athermal. Well, this study right here just said at non-thermal or athermal exposure levels, we're creating leaky brain. And this is in rats, but there's been studies in children showing blood-brain barrier and the radiation and brain tumors. Here's another one from 2016. And look, EMFs produce widespread neuropsychiatric effects, including depression. So this is on humans. And this shows that non-thermal, okay, so athermal or non-heat producing microwave lower frequency EMFs activate voltage-gated calcium channels. What the heck is that? So our brain is covered in voltage-gated calcium channels. And on my YouTube channel here, I made this, oops, sorry. On my YouTube channel, I made this video 5 years ago now. Last week, it was 5 years. You'd be able to get to it. Here we go. So you could go on my YouTube channel or just go on YouTube and search excitotoxicity, migraine, depression, etc. But I'm walking you through it. And basically, this is a neuron, and this is a voltage-gated calcium channel. And essentially, in normal physiology, you have a signal, you know, the neurons are conducting an action potential. When that hits a certain voltage-gated calcium channel, the channel opens up and calcium increases in the cell, and a protein is made to do the job that the cell's trying to do. But if we have too much calcium entrance or hypercalcemia inside the neuron, you get an inflamed brain and you get what's called excitotoxicity. You get lots of oxidative stress production or free radicals, if you've heard of those, or rusting, right, that we've talked about at our visits. And so that rusting promotes the brain damage that we see, or the neuropsychiatric symptoms that this study is finding. And so it says right here, EMFs from cell phone base stations, excessive cell phone use, and from wireless smart meters, like what Duke wants to put on your house, can each produce similar patterns of neuropsychiatric effects, with several of these studies showing clear dose-response relationship. So that means the longer you're on the phone, the worse it is, or the more exposure you have, the worse it is. Commonly reported changes are sleep disturbance or insomnia, headache, depression, depressive symptoms, fatigue, dysesthesia, which is like sensory changes, concentration, attention dysfunction, so maybe ADD, ADHD, memory changes, dizziness, irritability, so mood changes, loss of appetite or body weight, restlessness, anxiety, nausea, skin burning, tingling, and even EEG changes. So if we did a brainwave test, we could see that your brainwaves were changing. So this is called microwave syndrome. So this is a real thing in the clinical literature. It's happening to people, and it's a big deal, but right now it looks like, you know, profit is going to win out over prudence. So we need to be aware of this so that we can protect ourselves and our families. And then lastly here, so that's all like cell phone radiation EMFs. There's 20,000 studies on that. The 5G data is not as robust because it's new, right? But there are preliminary studies. There's a 2018 study that shows millimeter wave frequency, which is 5G, increases skin temperature, so does heat you, alters gene expression, promotes proteins, oxidative stress, rust, free radicals, inflammation. And so far what they're seeing is it affects the eyes, the skin, and the sperm most. So, you know, I don't need to keep my phone in my pocket. My sons don't need to touch phones because they're really young, but basically males should keep the phone as far away from the genitals as possible if fertility is a goal. And then obviously skin is everywhere. So basically one of the strategies we want to do is keep these things away from us, right? Not on our persons. So walking around with our phone on us 24/7 is not a good idea. And there you go.
Even
here.
now, you mean even before 5G?
Oh yeah, even before 5G. But this is showing that, you know, the things that as you activate the voltage gated calcium channels, drive that excitotoxicity or drive that rust, that drives inflammation and impairs your immune response, right? So if we're talking about a 5G city where a pandemic starts, well, how is that even related? Well, if we're impairing immune response to the entire city by blasting it 24/7 with millimeter waves and driving oxidative stress, that makes them worse antiviral defenses are worse at fighting viruses. So, you know, it's biologically plausible. And so, you know, here was one study that was done in Russia in 1977, but wasn't declassified till 2012, where these people found that millimeter wavelengths were damaging skin, heart, liver, kidney, spleen, blood, and bone marrow. So they've known since the 70s. Now it's rolling out. You know, the goal is to roll it out worldwide. So we need to protect ourselves. How do we do that?
Yes.
Well, this weekend I was at a seminar with a four-person expert panel on all of this. So these are some of the notes from it. And a couple of the guys, this guy, Terry Hassler, he's an electromagnetic radiation specialist. He'll come in and you know, survey our homes and tell us how exposed are we and do we need to do various levels of protection. But he said the general thing to do is to create a sleep sanctuary. So that means have a cool bedroom, have it pitch black, have it quiet, and have it low EMF. And so low EMF means unplugging everything in your room or everything within 6 to 8 feet of your bed. If your room is on a switch where you could actually shut off the electricity to like that part of your house, he said do that. But if you can't do that, unplug things. Use a flashlight until morning. Use a clock that's battery operated, not plugged in. And obviously, you want to unplug your router when you're not using it. You want to shut your phones off and leave them downstairs, or put them on airplane mode, leave them downstairs, and basically create the lowest tech environment possible. Now, that's all great, but a lot of houses have houses next door with neighbors that don't unplug their routers, right, and their Wi-Fi. So what do you do then? Well, you can shield your home. And I've had patients ask me, you know, which home shield product is best, or is there a best one? I'm not totally sold yet that there is one that does the job. And the experts, that was one of the questions I asked the experts, and they weren't completely sold on one yet either. But what they did say was, excuse me, was there are some low tech things we can do. So have either of you ever run a marathon or been to a 5K or any road race?
And a half.
Yeah, I have. So great. So Allison, did they give you one of those like foil heat wraps when you finished?
No, it was
Okay.
in April in Charlotte. So
Okay, so it was
yeah,
warm.
it was a little
Well,
warmer.
my wife's done Ironman and marathons. So at various races, they'll give you these like foil heat wraps to warm you up at the end, and they're like $8 at a Cabela's or something like that. And so one of the speakers said you can get those and put them on your bed to shield your bed. So basically, it'd be a layer of covers, right?
Mhm.
On top of your covers, you mean?
Well, on top of you, yeah. Doesn't have to be the toppest one if you don't want it to be, but yeah, or most top. But yes, on your bed. And then really low tech, say I'm sleeping, right? And this wall is my outside wall, and my neighbor's Wi-Fi router is on the other side of their wall, right? Well, then if I want to block that, you can take tinfoil and double layer it and cover your wall, and then the seams you cover with HVAC tape. So it's low tech and not probably the best feng shui, but from a protection standpoint, it works. But you need to tape the boundaries because millimeter wavelengths, 5G, it's like that, right? So we can't give it space to come through. They said you can do that in your attic to help shield from the satellites, and they also said a metal roof also helps shield the satellite. So versus shingles.
Huh.
And
What? I'm
then
sorry. What type? What type of shield in the attic?
so you could do the tinfoil strategy in the
Oh,
attic,
same. Okay.
or get a metal roof.
Oh, a metal roof. That's what you said. Okay.
Yep.
I see a few metal roofs around Mooresville here.
Yeah. And then again, the duration, the distance, and the density matter. So duration of exposure. You want to talk is, love them, but be quick, right? Or put it on speakerphone and put it out there and just talk from there. Or there's different headsets that prevent the EMF from coming to you. Okay, so you want to lower the duration.
So what about the AirPods then?
I don't know for sure, but my suspicion is that those aren't good because
Yeah.
Bluetooth is one of the ways. If you're using data, if you're using Bluetooth, if you're using Wi-Fi, so those function through Bluetooth, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I see a kid in my neighborhood all the time skateboarding or riding or walking around with AirPods because it's cool. It's like, dude, that's not cool. You're baking your and your phone's probably in your pocket, so you're baking your sperm, so it's double whammy. And then the distance thing. So like I said, instead of talking here, I never talk here because I'm anal enough that I feel like I can feel the radiation hitting me, right? So I put it on speaker and put it out there. Even if you're not on the phone, if you're driving, right? Put your phone as far away from you or put it on airplane mode while you're driving. All the cars do Bluetooth connection. You may or may not want to do that. I would say if you're not Bluetoothing music or an audiobook or something, then turn that off.
Mm-hmm.
And then the power density or the intensity. They said every single app that's on your phone is pinging the tower very frequently looking for updates. So the apps that you're not using, just erase off your phone. I erased like 4 or 5 of them this weekend.
Oh, great idea.
Yeah. The cell phone's extra antennas, again, if you're not using data, turn it off. If you're not using Bluetooth, turn it off. If you're not using Wi-Fi, turn it off. You know, don't leave those on because there's 4 antennas, and if they're constantly pinging power, you're getting blasted. And then you can, you know, I was talking to my wife last night. I said, how can we create clothes where tinfoil is sewn in so that
Yes.
we're protected? But because of the millimeter waves, we basically have to wear tinfoil.
Right.
So that
Or hats
Yeah.
also.
yeah. So so that's what you want to do, and we talked about that. And then lastly, one of the speakers said, again, this returns to what I was talking about earlier about principles, right? The principles of health, because this can be overwhelming. Well, if there's satellites and 1 million towers, we're never gonna be safe. We're dead, right? You could go that way, or you could say, well, I want to take action. What can I do? And that's where our principles of health come in handy again, right? We want to sleep. We want to eat clean. We need physical activity, you know, breathing, high antioxidant foods, grounding. One of the speakers said grounding mats, that's just adding an electromagnetic field. You want to just get barefoot outside. Barefoot outside is the best way to ground. You know, sunlight, hydration. So all the things we know we need to do, but we may or may not be doing them, are going to give us the best shot. So if you think about right, survival of the fittest, almost, it's like, well, fittest in this instance is the most principled, or who's doing the most of these things the most days of the week. They're going to probably be the most robust and hardest to kill with 5G.